We're going to talk about pitfalls for cloud native, and a lot of it has to do with data, unfortunately. To give me an idea of what I'm dealing with here in the room, we're at a DevOps conference, right? So everybody here is a little bit developer. How many people here consider themselves the ops side of DevOps? Say about 20% or so. Of those ops people, who are SREs? Currently SRE? 1, 2, 3. Ooh, okay, all of you take a look at who that was. Those are the ones you buy a beer later. They have the hardest job of anybody inside of Cloud Native, that's for fact. You're gonna see a little bit why. Of the developers, who here thinks they're an architect, or nobody? Come on, we all think we're architects, right? Good, okay, that's what I thought. Any managers get lost and wander in here? There's one, but you're the SRE, so what are you, a manager or manager of SREs? Oh, okay, how many? Okay, funny story, really quickly, this deviates completely from my talk. She's an SRE manager. I gave a talk like this one time, and I had an SRE manager that came up afterwards and said, I have 200 SREs, we lose 20 a year to burnout and stress. This will come back in here. I was like, wow, you know, this is a really hard job they do. Okay, get back on track here. The three things we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about cloud and data, what this means, kind of set the baseline. We're going to look a little bit at observability. That's why I asked about the SREs and asked about the ops side of DevOps. Because like it or not, more and more that's come into our lives as we do our jobs inside our organizations and as we grow and learn how this stuff works, especially if you're doing it at scale. How many people here work at a startup or consider it a startup? Maybe 10%, okay? If your stuff takes off like crazy, like you're hoping it's gonna do, then you're gonna experience what I'm talking about, right? It's definitely something that happens. And then we're gonna look a little bit at the FinOps stuff. At 4:30, I don't know if the person's in the room that's giving the talk at 4:30, but there's going to be one about FinOps and Kubernetes. He's right here. There you go. You're getting a free plug. Definitely worth coming to this one. That's a really, really crucial aspect. How many people here are in a company right now that has a FinOps role in their organization? 2? Just 2? Oh, wow. 3, 4. Okay. Yeah, you, of course. You must be a FinOps practitioner, right? Okay, this picture is my favorite for this because I don't know about you, but when I've been around a little while in IT. I've been around when cloud started. I was here when containers first started. This stuff was amazing. I was a developer, right? I was super excited about this stuff. It was a little bit confusing to me, but why I'm describing how I want things to happen out there in the cloud, and then I have let it go like you do your children and hope it all behaves, right? That's basically what you're doing. So I think this picture shows you a little bit of the feeling you get after you start doing some of this stuff at scale at several organizations and see how this works. And you feel like the promise hasn't really been held up completely. Feels like I dropped my ice cream, right? That same kind of feeling. That's what I mean by this. A very fundamental thing to understand about the cloud and the cost and the pain involved and the things that happen to organizations that you read about, it's really a basic fundamental thing. It's just like water through the pipe. Data through the pipe, in and out of the clouds and the different providers you use, that's where the money is. So the things you're building and the things you were doing before the cloud came along, before cloud native came along, before containers, before all the public clouds, that doesn't work the same way. You can't architect your applications the same way. So if you're a younger developer right now, you never experienced that in the past. You never dealt with mainframes. You never dealt with VMs, probably. Things that were very static and very well defined, and you knew what your environments were, and it didn't matter how much data you sent back and forth. You know, it does matter in the cloud where you put it, how you use it. Look right now about analytics and all the predictive stuff we're trying to do with LLMs and whatever else we're doing in AI. A lot of data involved there, right? You can't be pushing that in and out of the cloud. Nobody can afford that. It's really important to understand this. It is always interesting to have the use case why you wouldn't use the cloud. And not many people can define a good use case for that, but this was a really, really nice one. It's a little bit older now. It's a CIO that gave this talk. And he mentioned that they run the press group. It's in Belgium. They have websites in Belgium and several in the Netherlands, big news sites. And as you can read there, something happened in Paris, some terrorist stuff. Everybody was locked down, if you remember that. And they were trying to find French language sites, right? They were completely crashing everything in France. So they kind of deviated over the border into a part of Belgium called Wallonia, and they speak French there. And so they had 3 sites in this group. And these 3 sites got hammered, right? And if you look at the surge, and it's just a percentage in traffic, but it doesn't really matter. And the quote that he said before was one of the questions he got during that talk. Why don't you do this in the cloud? And he goes, the cloud hosting is not the problem. The price wasn't that bad. But the data through the pipe, this action right here for a couple of days out of Paris, would have bankrupted the entire group. It would have blown their complete company out of the water in those times. So here's one where they say, we're never going to go in the cloud. We're never going to use containers. We don't want auto scaling. We're going to define our environments. We're going to buy servers, and we're going to put them in a rack. That's how they operate. So if anybody ever asks you, you now have a use case of why you don't want to go in the cloud. Okay, the second one. Everybody know what Ollie means? My shirt's complete useless, right? So everybody knows K8S, right? Right? No? Kubernetes, right? The 8 letters in the middle, so we don't have to spell that. It's basically for social media. I get tired of typing Kubernetes all the time, right? Observability has 11 letters in the middle, so they say Ollie, right? It's even worse. I used to be years and years and years an app developer, and for about a year and a half now I work at an observability company. When I first got there, I was hating my life trying to type that out all the time. And somebody pointed this out to me. So Ollie is data. I cannot stress this enough. It used to be when we were developers, we didn't care. At least I didn't. You know, you just develop what you're doing, you do what they tell you to do. If they want you to put some observability metrics tags or whatever in, yeah, that's fine, I'll put that in there, have fun. We really can't do that anymore, right? We're very, very much involved in the whole process. How many people here own in production what they write in development? Nobody? You guys just throw one? Well, you're an SRE, of course you do. Just one guy. You work at some of the larger companies like, I know Microsoft, you write it, you own it, all the bugs, everything comes back to you. Everything. For eternity. You work there 20 years, you got a lot of stuff in production, probably somewhere. I don't know if it survives the 20 years, but it's pretty rare that you can just write stuff and forget about it. You're going to own some aspect of the observability, of the pipeline, of what's happening with this thing. Are we able to get observability across our entire landscape? Who here thinks they can do that in their org? Unless it's, and I don't want the startups that just have one machine. That's not fair, right? This is really hard. And you think about it, if you're doing anything at any kind of scale in the cloud, they say in research that I recently read, an average of 10 tools are used to handle the observability. 10 different tools. Good God. You know, that's got to be a struggle for an SRE. How'd you like to know 10 different tools? And your beeper's going off, and it's the middle of the night. Fix it, right? My whole company's going to go down. It all started out like this. This was super easy. Containers, right? VMs, 1 or 2 machines, we know what's going on. This is our developer environment, right? On our machine. Very easy. I can do this, I can spin it up, I can spin it down, I can make stuff. I rarely use pods, to be really honest. I just use container images and let them talk to each other when I'm developing on my machine, right? The less complexity, the better. Very easy. Observability used to be an oasis like this. I was looking at some logs. Maybe I play with the tracing tool a little bit nowadays, but not really crazy stuff, right? Everything is, I can see it all, I can do it all. Anybody remember things like Nagios and really simple tools, right? You just look at it, one dashboard, and off we go. Problem is, most people are finding out, and you'll probably hear a lot more about this in the FinOps talk. Over here, we're spending this much money on our production environment, on what we want to do. And our observability costs are going like this. And nobody would care if our costs were going like this, if customer satisfaction was good, if we were able to remediate stuff really fast, if developers were able to spend more time on development than on triaging, debugging, and deploying. But that's not the case. And you're seeing this cause people to stop and say, whoa, wait a minute here. Why is all my money going this way? We need to figure this out. And it has an awful lot to do with tools choices. Some of these tools, remember we talked about there's a lot of data involved here. Some of these tools want you to send all your data to storage. That costs money. You'll find out that a lot of the data you're sending to storage you're not even using. There's so much generated in the cloud that you don't use. A simple example, you can find hundreds of these on the internet. There's a link in the slides. The slides are online right now. You can find them at Schabell.org and if you scan that little QR code that's at the front, and it'll be at the back. You can look at the slides in the speaker notes. This one is just one simple example. It's a test app with a front end that gets hit with a script, so it does a few things like it's being pinged, and then to do all the basic metrics. And this is 30 days collection. We're talking about 0.5 terabyte on data for one thing. So how many things are out there in your companies? I've been to companies where they're running hundreds of thousands to 1 million containers, services, microservices, apps, all kinds of stuff, databases. Where's all this going? Who's paying for this? This is data being pumped around. How are you doing that? It's pretty shocking when you step back and start thinking about this, right? I thought at first the storage is a big deal, but then you start digging into that, and on average, I saw this on I think it was an IDC call I was sitting on. They said, it just stuck in my head because I was like, wow. They say on average, companies store their data 13 months, on average. This is excluding financials that have to do it much longer, right? The problem is we have this mandate to store it for 13 months, and we don't really get specific about it. We just, you start out by saying 13 months. So that means your development environments is spun up to train your developers for a week, go up and down, and then get also stored for 13 months. That costs money. It'd be much better to fine tune all that, but that's all side activities that are not really 100% focused on what you're doing for your business and kind of slip through the cracks before you figure this stuff out. So it's something to think about. And then this was a Reddit thread that made me giggle. It's dripping off this guy's sarcasm about the reaction. So I guarantee you this was an SRE. I guarantee you that the question that was initially asked was really innocent. It was like, oh, I'm thinking about setting up OpenTelemetry, do some traces in my org. And this was the first reaction that came back within just seconds. The link's in the speaker notes. But the guy's like, good God, man, I can't even get him to look at metrics, let alone tracing. And it's a pretty big org. You'd think that if we're doing DevOps and we're doing all this kind of stuff to keep track of our microservices, you'd have a little bit more interest in being able to do this stuff. Thought it was pretty funny, pretty indicative. So, I must warn you, this is a bit of the depressing part of the presentation. We did an observability study and talked to 500 different engineers and developers. And this is what came back. And most of it is sad, right? It's hard to imagine that you're going to work and feeling like this, right? We have some of the greatest technology out there today. We can get so much stuff done as a developer, but yet 87% of them are saying this sucks, right? And it just kind of spirals from there. I can't even imagine that my day would be, this much time spent on triaging and on deployments and problems. Did you sign up to be a troubleshooter, or did you sign up to be a developer, an engineer, somebody that's going to make things happen, right? Personally, if I'm spending this much, and that's a lot of people that are answering this question. That's crazy, yeah? Quarter of your week. How many people feel like they're doing that now? It's kind of a loaded question. Half raise their hand, half giggle. The ones that are giggling are going to the same thing, right? You kind of ask yourself, he's right. Why am I doing this? I hope your boss isn't in the room. I didn't mean to make him nervous that you're going to quit. So it feels like the water's rising around us, right? We're standing in the middle of it, and it's just getting worse and worse and worse, and it's affecting your personal life. Who goes home and has trouble sleeping because a good thing is because I'm trying to figure out that bug I can't fix. I used to love the days in the old days when our development environments were so slow that a build would take 40 minutes and my Java thing had to compile. We'd go get coffee and we'd be talking about some complex problem I couldn't figure out. Usually solve it after the coffee's done, go back and then fix it. Doesn't work that way now, right? These containers are like seconds. So this stuff just makes you feel more and more stressed out, right? Too much pressure, too much stuff we got to do. And the worst part of this is it's all over. Can you believe that? That many people want to quit? And I've mentored quite a few people, and I'll tell you, man, if you're even thinking like this, quit. Why would you go someplace that doesn't make you smile in the morning? How much time do you spend at work? You might as well enjoy it. And I know there's a little bit of a decline in the jobs out there and stuff, but really, there's more seats than there are people to do it still. I don't care how many they fire. There's just too much going on in IT. There's always something out there to do. This is not a good sign. You know, don't tell me you're not taking this home. But I don't want to end on really dark stuff, so let's see what's causing this. The reason that those 2 containers made us so dark and sad and want to quit our jobs was because it turns into this. Here's what it looks like when you have real containers at scale, with those 10 different tools out there helping you do it, and all kinds of pipelines and different gadgets around there to make it all work. But if you've ever been to one of these logistics centers where they do these things, this works. They don't lose a lot of containers. You know, they don't drop them in the ocean when they're unloading them and all that kind of stuff. There's a way to get this done. And when you're at the bottom of the pile of your observability platforms and stuff, this is what it feels like, all this data that comes flooding, especially when this stuff scales. So a lot of the time when you start up with something smaller and it starts scaling like crazy, think of the pandemics. In the US, I know DoorDash is like the Deliveroos and all those things here that deliver food. That thing went crazy. They had so much stuff scale so fast they didn't even realize what wasn't configured properly, what wasn't handling the data right, what the observability platforms were sucking in there. They went through this and they reconfigured everything and cut back on stuff and changed tools and optimized and got it down to something they could manage. Because this is what it can look like. We all know what this city is? Yeah, Barcelona. Anybody here walked around the streets of Barcelona? It doesn't look like this, does it? It doesn't feel like this, does it? It feels like chaos. Here in town looks beautiful too, but it's windy little streets and all this kind of, but you get above it coming in as an airplane and there's order here. Somebody's thought about this for thousands of years when they built this city. They figured out that there's a way to construct and keep everything manageable so I can pick up the garbage everywhere and so I can make things work and beautiful buildings and fixing stuff. We can get there. We can do this. This is the goal. This is the dream, right? So the final thing, the FinOps part, right? This is kind of a big deal because there's got to be a way to get this stuff sorted out and be able to manage this. And a lot of it has to do with that cost thing I was talking about. We don't mind paying for stuff. We don't mind that it costs money. We just want to optimize the stuff we're getting back for every dollar we spend, if I said that right. Got to quote his things. So how many people here know if we just split it down to just metrics? Anybody here using metrics? Be surprised if you're not, yeah. Do you know exactly what you're spending on it? Exactly how much? That's not a fair question. Just teasing. Okay. Not so bad, eh? Ah, so you don't care. Did you guys hear that? So they deploy on somebody else's account, their customers' accounts.
where the metrics are needed, not in every project.
Yeah.
We spend about 30 per month on AWS.
Okay. So here's somebody that actually has a little bit of head wrapped around it, but you know it's not fair that you're deploying. How many? I guess a better question for you guys is how many customers have you lost because you deployed metrics on their account and it blew up? It's kind of funny when you look at metrics and stuff like that. We discover in our observability customers that often there's observability is basically a dashboard, right? You have data you've collected, you put it somewhere, and you're querying it and making visualizations so people can figure out what they got to do with it. And hopefully the visualizations make a little bit of sense and they're really easy to use and quickly, fix problems for whoever's beeper's going off. Aside from that, we find so many customers that have, for example, an ingestion of 380,000 data points. It's a lot of data you're paying for coming in. And you can make the same dashboards they created with only 30 data points or with 300 data points. So huge factor of savings if you think about stuff like that. This is a little bit old, but I like to draw the attention to it because I was sitting there. How many people sit here and listen to sometimes these Gartner or IDCs or whatever webinar you're listening to where somebody's telling you about the state of the cloud or the state of whatever, and you're just doing something else on the side and that's running on the side? And I almost fell out of my chair when I heard this quote, because I was like, you don't hear IDCs and Gartners talk about, 80% of organizations are going to do something. Usually they're getting all excited when it's 35. Then it's a trend, right? So I was like, 80? What are they talking about? And we're there. So that's why I asked if there was any FinOps people here in the crowd. I guarantee you that almost every organization is thinking about this if it's using the cloud in any way, shape, or form. There's great structure involved. Go to the talk at 4:30. He's going to share some stuff around that. It's really good. The company I work for is the first observability platform that's joined the FinOps Foundation, which really kind of blew my mind that nobody had done that before. And there's been a few more since. It's a small plug for my company. That's it. I won't bore you any further with that. And then I gave you 3 pitfalls, but I'm going to give you a free one, an extra one. So what's the number one item that should be on your cloud wish list? Anything you do in the cloud, I don't care what it is. And a few people were architects here, so you tell me, when you're architecting things, what's the number one thing that you think of? Do I have an exit strategy? Right? For whatever component, whatever platform, whatever tool, whatever action you're about to take, what if I want to exit? What's that going to cost? How do I get out? Am I using open standards? This kind of stuff, right? That should be the number one thing at the top of any list when you're looking at moving into a cloud vendor, out of a cloud vendor, adding a component, whatever it is. If I can send you home with one thing, let that be it. Save you a lot of heartache, my friend. So this is what we talked about. Data in the cloud, observability being data. I tried not to depress you too much. Give you a little bit of a whoop at the end that we can get our environments looking like Barcelona. And then we talked a little bit about the FinOps. There's going to be a much bigger talk about it later. It's a really good thing to get your head around to what's going on. They have a FinOps foundation. It's really easy to follow. And with that, you can scan for the observability research stuff I did and for this talk. So I got lots of stuff you can scan. Grazie.
I love the example of superblocks in Barcelona. So.
Yeah. For the FinOps dude.
Okay. People connected remotely, already. Raise a question, but in the room, anyone?
The SRE manager.
That's the.
Okay, I have something for you.
Okay.
Was it that good? Or
Don't
are you
be
just shocked?
shy. We don't eat. You?
Shocked and
We
stunned.
will eat. I can break the ice if you want.
Sure,
I was
break
curious.
it.
You were talking with this guy over there.
Are you scared of me?
That he mentioned that for production we have metrics, right? When it's needed. When it's needed. So when it's worth to take metrics to observe, because apparently, so where is that about?
Well, I'm assuming he's doing other things if he's not doing metrics, right?
As metrics have a cost, when it's worth to have metrics.
So an interesting thing to think about this, you hear an awful lot of in observability about the pillars, signals, whatever you want to call them, metrics, logs, and tracing, and events maybe. We like to talk, and I think people should stop talking about technology and approaching it from bottom up, and you have to have this tool, you have to have that tool. You don't want dashboards that are lined up like that. Completely useless. I think you need to talk about phases. That's a business aspect, and you can communicate with the people that have budgets and understand what they want. So you want to know what's going on as fast as possible. Hopefully triage right there, but if you can't, you spend a phase triaging, getting this stuff back the way it was before. That usually involves looking at what just happened as an event, a deployment or a feature flag got changed or something. And then you also want to be able to go back and dig as deep as you can in like root cause analysis so it never happens again. So try to avoid talking about metrics, log tracing. They don't solve the problem. Those are tools. Those are like carrying around a bunch of screwdrivers. I like to tell a story and show a picture of mechanic's toolbox and you have a really nice old car and you drive up into a garage because it's smoking and the temperature's going up on the engine and you don't know what's going on, and you run in there and say, my car, and he starts showing you all the tools in his toolbox that are so damn cool and shiny and new, and they do this and they do that, and you look out the window and your car's on fire. You know, that's what it's like talking about the pillars or the signals or whatever. You're not interested in that. You're interested in what am I trying to do with my business? What am I trying to achieve? And I'll tell you, your SREs don't give a crap whether it's a log, 1 log, 2 traces, and half a metric that gets you out of the problem that their beeper's going off at 2 a.m., right? So big roundabout way to kind of answer that question.
Thank you. We still have 2 minutes, eventually. We have also prizes, so.
I already promised this one to the SRE manager. I'm not going to throw it because I'll probably knock someone down over there. So.
Okay.
Thank you then.
Will you be around?
I will be around.
Good.
I'm going to see the FinOps talk.
You are about to raise your hand, but time is running out. He is still there for
You'll
the
find
rest
me. I'll
of
be
the
here.
days. Thank you a lot.
You're welcome.
And also about basketball. I read in your
Baseball,
bio.
yeah.
He's
Baseball,
a basketball expert.
No,
so-
baseball.
Baseball.
Baseball,
Okay,
yeah.
baseball.
It's a little different. Smaller ball.
Small difference. Good.